Okay, so I just now finished playing Octopath Traveler 0 and this game was so good. It was so good that actually it made me want to make a video on this. It's been 100 hours of playtime and this game was an absolute blast. If you're a JRPG fan, I strongly recommend you play this game. If you're not, or if you're still on the fence, then maybe this video will help you figure out if this is something for you or not. I would define Octopath Traveler 0 as the pure distilled essence of what it means to be a JRPG. And this means it's not the perfect JRPG, it's not the perfect game, it has its own flaws, but what it does is it takes the pure essence of a JRPG and shows you a little bit of everything in its own way. If I had to define it, it feels kind of like playing an old school Dragon Quest game with a narrative style closer to the Falcom's Trails series, with a little bit of Final Fantasy style packed into a really well polished turn-based gameplay. Without further ado, let's take it away to my review of Octopath Traveler 0. Enjoy. Octopath Traveler 0 offers an amazing experience for both newcomers and veterans of the series. The game originates from a gacha game set as a prequel to the original Octopath Traveler 1. However, the gacha elements have been removed or readapted, and the game is able to stand on its own merit as a masterpiece in JRPG design and narrative. For those of you who did not enjoy the first Octopath's lack of deep character interactions and separate narratives, I am happy to say that these complaints do not apply to this entry. Octopath Traveler 0 is a massive game, spanning at least 100 hours of content with very little downtime or time waste. It took me around 100 hours to go through all the content and experience all the endings, including all side quests and optional content, and every second of it has been chock full of narrative and enjoyable gameplay. There is just so much to do, explore, and discover that you will always feel tempted to push forward a little bit more for each gaming session. You get a wide range of party members and a large variety of customizations and fun build compositions to play around. You get several story arcs that span a huge continent with multiple cities and dungeons. You get a pseudo open world experience that lets you explore and tackle content in the order you see fit. You get a fun town building minigame, engage in turn-based battle, challenges boss mechanics, deep political intrigues, and also light-hearted power of friendship cutscenes and jokes. If you can't think of any staple feature of the JRPG genre, this game likely touches on it in some way. If you're a new player wanting to experience the JRPG genre for the first time, this game will give you a taste of everything, and I strongly recommend it. What's more, you don't even need to have played the other two entries in the series to do so. It is a pure standalone game experience. If you're coming fresh from having played Octopath Traveler 2, you might be a bit disappointed that some of the textures and models in Octopath Traveler 0 are not as detailed and fancy. After all, the game still originates from a mobile gacha game. The skills and particle effects during combat have also been toned down and are less flashy, which does feel a little bit like a step back from its predecessors. However, if you can look past that, you will learn to appreciate some of the most complex and nice looking pixelated boss fights I've ever seen in any JRPG ever. Just like its predecessors, the game enjoys overhyping boss fights with giant enemy sprites, often in a ridiculous manner, and overly detailed compositions, but to a degree that in my opinion stands out even more in this entry in particular. I found myself constantly going from one boss fight to the next, wondering what kind of amazing sprite work I would be treated to, and I am glad to say that I never felt disappointed in what I saw. Out of the 30 plus massive roster of characters, each individual recruitable member also has their own little artwork, and each of them has been a real treat. If you're a fan of the 2.5D HD design, I think this game will be right up your alley. Just like the rest of the franchise, I'm glad to say that Octopath 0 also does not disappoint in the audio department. This game has one of the best soundtracks of all JRPGs, placing it easily among musical giants like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy, and the Trails series. A lot of the tracks will feel familiar to the fans of the series as they are straight up imported from the previous games, but we also are treated to a plethora of new tracks and rearrangements for each and every single one of the boss fights and new areas that we get to explore during the game. If you, like me, have a soft spot for epic orchestrated music with lots of violins and opera singing, this game will treat you to an amazing experience, and I cannot recommend it enough. I know for sure its soundtrack will be populating my most listened playlist in the years to come. Compared to Octopath 1 and 2, Octopath Zero carries some of the battle system changes from the gacha game. You now run a party of 8 characters, which taps more easily into the much larger roster available. You play turn-based battles with a front and back row. During each turn, you can swap the back and front character freely with each other. The one in the front attacks, while the other in the back heals and provides additional buffs each turn. It also maintains staples of the franchise, like accumulating and spending medal points to perform multi-hit attacks or improve the strength of skills, and exploiting weaknesses and breaking shields to stall enemies and deal massive damage. From the build customization angle, the game simplifies a lot of the mechanics from its predecessors. For example, there is no more multi-class system. With the exception of the main character, each recruitable party member is locked to their own job, following standard archetypes. However, they all have their own individual set of both active and passive skills. For example, 2 thief characters may use the same weapons, but will have access to a very different set of skills. But do not be worried, if you enjoy making your own builds to break the game, you will find that Octopath Zero as well provides you with plenty of opportunities to do so. Once you unlock all the skills for one character, you can spend more job points to master some of them, and then share them with other characters. If you feel intimidated by the large roster of characters, do not be. Whatever characters aren't actively taking part in your battles, they can still obtain a share of experience and job points by training at one of the facilities of your village. You will never feel like anyone is being left behind, and I found it very easy to swap characters in and out freely without issues. As someone who does not usually enjoy crafting and town building minigames, I was very surprised at how seamless and not intrusive the town building side quests and mechanics were introduced to the game. Among the various main story quest lines, one specifically makes you rebuild your hometown with some of your friends and party members as helpers. However, the amount of work that is actually required from the player is relatively low and does not get in the way of your overall JRPG experience. If you enjoy playing around with customizing buildings, placing street lamps, roads, trees and all that stuff, you will have a very good time with this. But on the other hand, if you don't need to actively participate in it. You can just place a few required buildings here and there and the rest will handle itself. I do however recommend at least setting up the farm and the livestock ranch, as regularly selling their products to the item shop will get you a very nice source of passive income that will easily carry you throughout the rest of the game. Most of the town upgrades are also obtained by just playing the game normally and taking on special enemy challenges, so it will just happen naturally as you go. I have played this game on Switch too, and the performance has been for the most part fine. I have only had noticeable slowdowns and frame drops when walking around my custom-made town with lots of buildings and objects lying around. Besides that, the rest of the game plays very smoothly with no problems. However, be warned that the Switch 1 version is significantly held back compared to the other consoles, and there is a lower limit on the amount of objects you can place in your own town. Personally, I would consider going for the PC version if possible, especially if you are learning Japanese with text hooking tools or if you just want to install a few mods here and there. There is a fairly healthy modding community. Some people are even trying to introduce a lot of new characters ripped straight up from the gacha version of the game itself. With the disclaimer that I have played this game entirely in Japanese and so I cannot comment on the English writing, let's now talk about narrative. I found the writing to be a clear step up from the previous entries, as it addresses some of the criticism I had about especially Octopath 1. Rather than focusing on a group of 8 characters, Octopath Zero tells the story of you, the player. You are the main characters. You make your own hero and embark into a long journey that spans the entire continent of Orstera. Along the way, you will make a lot of friends and enemies. You meet many NPCs, you recruit some of them, you go on adventures with others. I enjoy the writing and interactions for most NPCs, both main and side ones. Most party members have some backstory, although a lot of them will just join your group for no real interesting reason other than just wanting to travel with you. The cast is mostly split between primary characters who take an active part in cutscenes and major story events, and random side characters that are just there to fill your town and be used in combat. Even from this aspect, I found that the writing followed a more traditional JRPG storytelling experience, where you actually get to enjoy quips and banter between different characters at various points during the story, although these characters will be completely oblivious to your party composition, just like in the previous entries. The story itself starts slow and it builds up to a lot of surprises and grand finales in many ways that I personally did not expect. Without spoiling anything, all I will say is that I thought I was already done with the story 40 hours in, and then it turns out I had just barely finished the prologue and the real story had yet to start. The narrative is split in multiple arcs and chapters, which initially branch out and then later merge back again. What's more important, unlike in previous games, everything in this game is related and is more or less clear from the start what the purpose of your journey is. You will always feel like you are making progress towards a single goal, following a more traditional JRPG narrative experience. If you are a Japanese learner, there are some pros and cons to be aware of. Most of the game dialogue is not in real time, so you can take your time to read each line and do your own dictionary lookups. The entire main story quest is fully voiced, but the side quests are not. Just like for the previous games, the language difficulty is about average for a JRPG, but it may feel intimidating if you have never played a JRPG in Japanese before. Be aware that some of the plot lines touching political discourse can end up being a bit confusing if you're not used to that kind of language. The good thing is that there's a fairly lengthy demo you can try for free, and progress carries into the full game if you end up buying it. Thank you for watching this video until the very end, and if you particularly enjoy this kind of content and want me to make more of it, then please leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. This was the Morg Angle, and I'll see you next time.